Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining us in our video series we're calling Our Great Awakening. Today we're going to talk about life, birth, death and rebirth. Declan.
This concept of reincarnation, the life, death and rebirth cycle, has been common in all cultures prior to the advent of Christianity. And in that understanding, we don't only have one life, we have many lives, and we're on a cycle. And of course that is all balanced by what we described in the last video, karma. But as we move forward, we are here to fulfill our soul contract that we set in place before we came into this life. So we live our lives and we try to fulfill that soul contract. And as we get older in life, we discover more and more of how to fulfill that contract. Because obviously we come into this world and we don't fully know what our goals have to be. And it's only by meeting certain individuals and connecting with those individuals, or reading a book, or looking at a video, and something sparks within you. And you realize, well, that's very important for me. I may not know why, but it is very important. So as we move through that, as we move through our lives, we fulfill these aspects. Now, mostly, we don't fulfill all those things. And that's the reason for going through into another life and the continual lives as that goes along. Now, with this life, we are given a fantastic opportunity to move on intellectually, spiritually, and physically. But there does come that time when the rigors of the world, when the difficulties that we face in the world become perhaps too much and we're overloaded with negative energy. And that's where we have to look at that energy and try to disperse that. However, when we get to that point of death, we have loads of karma, loads of karmic debt that we need to get rid of. So when we go through that doorway of death, because it is a doorway, it's not the death completely of everything, because we're constantly given more and more chances to fulfill that soul contract and to move on, to awaken and rise. And I think at the moment, Eileen, that's one of the great things that's happening. You know, we are awakening, we are dealing with these concepts more and more in our societies. And when we reach that doorway of death, we pass through. And then at that point, we understand the grand scheme. We understand it all. And then we redefine that contract. We choose our circumstances. We choose what happens in our lives that will bring us to that point of perhaps despair, of joy, but that point where our life is redefined. And there we go through that door and we are met with our spirit guides and taken to a place of our soul family where we can interact. And that to us really is our great home. We know this home in this world. This is our first time interacting with this place. But when we pass through that doorway of death, we are reawakened to the reality of everything, and we are given the opportunity then to begin again and fulfill that soul contract. Eileen.
Yes, death is nothing to be feared. It is simply, we're back to energy again. We are simply changing energy form. We are simply transmuting into a higher form of energy. We are not physical beings per se. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience for the duration of this lifetime only. And we are a soul. We have a body. And what we call death is just simply the ending of the physical body we have. Like an old coat, we no longer need it. We don't need it for the next level we're going to. We don't need the physical body. And we just discard it, like an old coat being discarded. We don't need it any further. We are all energy. As it was explained before, we are energy. And energy is in a constant state of change. And we are just moving from one level of vibration to another level of vibration. There's nothing to be feared. It's a natural process. And we shouldn't be looking on it as something fearful or something frightening. It is not frightening, it's a natural process of life. And I think it has been religion that has put the fear of death into us, by letting us believe that we're going to be judged and either put down to hell or else put into purgatory. That is a man-made belief. It's not coming from God. Anything that creates fear is not coming from the God energy. It's coming from a low vibration energy. And as spiritual beings, we are interplanetary, interdimensional, intergalactic nomads, wandering through all of eternity. And this physical lifetime is just simply one of our many long walkabouts across eternity. And like everything else, it comes to an end. And we pass on to another level. So if you're suffering grief over the loss of a loved one, yes, there's a natural grieving process to go through. But you haven't lost them. They haven't gone anywhere. There's no place called heaven. There's no place called hell where they have gone to. Those places don't exist. Everything is just different levels of energy, vibration, frequency. And we're travelling through them all until we get to the very top one. It's like the little grub in the pond. The little grub sees the blade of grass growing up through the murky water. And it sees the light up at the top and it wonders what is up there, what's going on up there. And his little friends cheered and said, go on, you go up and investigate and go back and tell us. So he starts up the blade of grass and he crawls upwards and he keeps looking back and they keep, go on, they keep cheering him on. And they're coming up after him. And he breaks the surface and he sees everything wonderful. And then he changes form. He becomes a dragonfly. And because he's a dragonfly, he can no longer go back into the water. Same as the caterpillar changed into the butterfly. The butterfly cannot go back to being the caterpillar because it has taken a new higher vibration level. That's all that's happening when we pass on after we end this physical life. It's nothing to be feared and you haven't lost anyone. They're simply on a higher vibration level than you are. And because we're looking with physical eyes, we cannot see the higher vibrations. It's all about vibrations, as we've explained before. The angels or the higher beings of light, whatever you call them, looking down on us here, they don't see us with eyes, they don't have eyes. They register with us according to the level or the rate at which our soul is vibrating. And when we pass over, we do not face any judgment. There is no judgment, there is no criticism. There is no God waiting to condemn us. Our soul automatically moves towards the level at which we are vibrating. It's all about vibration, frequency and energy. And death as we know it to be is not the reality. It's just simply a transference, a moving into a higher state of energy. And we're all going that direction. Now, if your loved one is on a higher vibration level than you, when you pass over, does that mean you can never see them again? Well, remember, you have no eyes, you're not going to see them. It's all about energy. It's all about merging of energy. Your energy will merge with theirs in a glorious reunion. It's all about a merging of energy. And if your loved one is on a higher vibration than you are, no, you cannot go up to that vibration because you have not gained access to that. We gain access to each level of vibration as we go on. You can't jump if you haven't gained. So we cannot go up to their level, but they can come down to our level. You can always come downwards, but you will have a joyous remerging of the energy again. Your energy will merge with theirs in spirit. And you've all that to look forward to. They haven't gone away. They are around you all the time. You know, there's no space between Declan and me here. It's full, there's energy in there. There's no such thing as empty space. There is energy in all sorts of forms. All various different levels are there. Like the channels in your television. You're sitting looking at one and the others haven't gone away anywhere. They're all still in the room with you, just aren't tuned into them. So when your loved ones have passed over, you can no longer touch them or cuddle them or hug them as you did when they were in physicality. But they're still around you as forms of energy. They're always around you. And you will merge with them again when you come to pass over into your higher vibration level. So there's nothing to fear about death. There is no judgment. You simply have a life review. And the thing about the life review is, if I've hurt anyone or offended anyone in my lifetime, I will feel that hurt, and that will bring me to my knees. Likewise, if I've made someone happy or brought them joy, I will feel that as well. So you see, again, it's all about balancing. But there is nothing to fear about death. And remember, the circumstances under which we die and the time at which we die is all part of our soul contract. Everything we do in life, we have created that. In the blueprint, we create it in between lives, in between reincarnations. We decide what lessons we want to learn, what we want to do, how we want to learn them. We decide all of that. And a person's death is just simply a fulfilling of that soul contract. Declan.
Well, I think too, going back to one of the points that you made there, we live in a world where we're still cavemen and women. We're still throwing rocks at each other. We're still, you do to me and I'll do it back to you. Punishment. There has to be a punishment for every action. But that is not the way of the world. That is the human evolution part. We've only got to that stage and we're still at that stage. But once we pass through that doorway of death, there is no punishment. God, or the great web of creation, or whatever you choose to call it, it's not like that. There's a much higher intelligence going on, a much higher level of understanding. And this world, our lives, all our lives, are cyclical. And everything in this world is cyclical. And I think that's one of the most important things to acknowledge, and also one of the greatest crimes in humanity, to tell someone that they will burn in a place for eternity. How brutal is that, Eileen? It's such a crime against humanity because we are going through that doorway with preconceived fear. And once we get there, we are then manifesting negatively. For a short period of time, we're manifesting negatively. Whereas we should be going through that doorway, conscious of our karma, but also aware that we are going home to a beautiful place, to be cared for.
And some of us have this idea in our heads too, that we're going to be lying around on a cloud, fluffy cloud, with our arms crossed playing a violin or playing a harp or something. That's not true either. There's no place called heaven. There's no place called hell. It's everything is a vibration level, an energy frequency. And as we've said, there's nothing to fear about death. It's a natural process.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. How boring would that be, to go to that place and sit in the cloud and not be stimulated and not be working through all the things that we work through? To use our natural abilities, our natural consciousness.
Yes, and what are we doing up there? We're not to say lying singing hymns or lying playing a harp. We are constantly, our soul is constantly evolving. We're learning, we're progressing. We might be helping others to cross over. We might be a spirit guide to someone else. We're involved. We're doing things. We're not just to say lying around doing nothing. Death is not the end. And that's the greatest fear people have about death. They think this is the end of me and that's the end of that person. I'm never again going to see them. No, that's not true. That has been put into you by various creeds and doctrines, man-made creeds and doctrines, to terrify you. Put the fear of death and put the fear of God in you. That's what we literally say. There is nothing to be afraid about death. It's a peaceful transition from one level of energy to the other. Like the little grub in the pond becoming the dragonfly. Like the little caterpillar becoming the butterfly. That's all it is.
For many shamanic journeys I've ever done, and books I've read on the topic, the energy that is brought about by birth is much more traumatic, much more painful than that of the slipping away of death.
And we've got those terms the wrong way around, I think. Death is not the end of it. Death should be when we come into this life. We are dying to the glories of the previous existence. That's death, not birth. And then when we die in this life, it's really we are being reborn into our natural existence. We are natural energy. We are not natural physical beings. We're only in this form for the duration of this lifetime. We are pure spiritual beings having a physical experience.
And this life really is a process of remembrance. We are remembering that we are spirit. And there's a lot of obstacles to that, obviously. But ultimately the goal is to fully remember who we are. to fully acknowledge the fact that we are spirit in body, not a body with a spirit. And the spirit is the most important aspect of us.
Yes. And in the next video, we'll be talking about the 7 Hermetic principles, otherwise known as the 7 great spiritual laws of the universe. And adherence to these laws is what brings us freedom. We think we are free. Well, we'll explain in the next video how no, we are not free. The only way we can be free is if we adhere to these 7 great spiritual laws. And we'll explain that to you in a few days' time. And until then, namaste.
Namaste.